Hello friends, this is Murtaza Bhatti. I'm an accountant based out of Toronto. We work under the flag of Insta Accountant, as you know. You can visit our website, instaaccountant.com. As you know, we are expert accountants for self-employed and contractors, and we also do a lot of Uber drivers, and that's what we are kind of quite famous for in Toronto, at least. So today I just wanted to talk about a topic which is very important for Uber drivers. And actually we were just working on one of the clients, and we were kind of refiling. We had to refile their tax returns for the past 3 years, and we ended up saving them around $6,500, like $6,500. So it just came to me that, you know, maybe I should make a video on this topic, that why Uber drivers should consider refiling their tax return or sending an adjustment to their already filed tax return. The reason is that sometimes, most of the times, you know, a lot of my clients would come up to me and tell me, oh, last year we filed our tax returns ourselves. We were using TurboTax or any other software, and you know, it seemed very easy doing this, and we did that. And when we do their tax return for the current year, we kind of, when they see the outcome, like whatever tax they have to pay or whatever refund they're getting, they kind of get really surprised. And the reason is that in the past year they had paid a lot of taxes, and they kind of come up with the question, how come this is like, you know, we're not paying that much this year? And then I explain them, this is why, you know, what we did for their tax return, the working and all. So they come to this realization that they skipped a lot of information or made a lot of errors in their tax return. So that is why the first thing is, I always tell my client, you know, don't save money on this thing. If you're not an expert, if you're not an accountant, you should go to a proper accountant and just pay him, and don't mess up your taxes. You know, once you do it, it's not gonna be, it's not a good thing, you know, especially if you end up paying more tax, unnecessarily more taxes. Secondly, if there is errors, you know, those might get caught up by CRA, and then, you know, there's always a back and forth with CRA, which is not a good thing at all. So just to avoid that, maybe you should go to an expert and get your taxes filed, especially if you're self-employed. So anyway, coming back to the topic, so in this video we're going to discuss why Uber drivers, or when Uber drivers should consider refiling their tax return. So the first thing is that if you're not an accountant, you don't have experience with filing self-employed tax return, because the normal tax return for employed people, that's pretty much easy to do as compared to self-employed. So if you don't have that knowledge, and you did it by yourself, maybe, and you think that maybe you paid a lot of taxes, or you know whatever the tax amount that you paid, it was a big amount or something. Maybe it's a good idea to get it kind of reviewed by an accountant, an accountant who knows Uber, who knows filing Uber tax returns, and they can tell you that if your filing was accurate or not, or if there was a room for any improvement. And if there is a room, you should definitely refile your tax return. I'm going to come to the things that you need, like the factors that you need to consider. I'm going to come to that point later on. But yes, if you file your tax return yourself and you have you're not that much confident, then you should definitely get your tax return reviewed by some accountant who knows. The second thing is, a lot of people, they say, oh, I didn't know that I could include this kind of expense in my tax return. For example, a lot of people that did their tax return by themselves, or even accountants did their tax returns, and they come to us and they say, oh, I didn't know that we can deduct like a booking fee as an expense, or service fees, or those kind of expenses, or maybe there was some legal cost that was associated to some tickets or something like that, that could have been deducted. Some expenses related to your car that you could have deducted, but you did not. So when you have those kind of doubts, and the amount of those expenses are material. So I'm not talking about meals that you say, oh, last year I didn't claim for the coffees that I drank. So it's not that, it's not a, but yes, if you could, I'm just making up examples. So you can say, the last year I did not actually deduct Uber booking fees as an expenses. That was like $3,500. So that amount would have made a lot of difference. It would have just changed your tax return altogether, right? So in that instance, if you have doubts on what expenses you claimed last year, you should definitely get it reviewed by an accountant. The third point is HST. So if you think that you paid a lot of HST last year, like whatever, when you filed your HST, you paid a lot of money. And it's like you're the best judge for whatever the amount you paid. But it has to be, if it's a material amount and you have that doubt, so you should definitely get it reviewed, because one thing that we need to kind of know, that your income tax return, T1, and your HST return, as a self-employed, they are interconnected. So if you make some changes in the income tax return, it is going to impact the HST return. The probability is very high, because that's how they work, right? Unless there are a few expenses that do not have HST impact, then the HST return is not going to be impacted. Otherwise, most probably, it is going to be impacted. So again, if you think that you paid a lot of HST, maybe it's a good idea to get your HST and income tax return reviewed by an accountant who knows Uber. So these are the factors, and if there is any other that comes to your mind, why not? And even if your accountant charges, obviously they will spend time on your tax return to review it, because reviewing, making a new tax return is actually simpler than reviewing an already filed tax return. So if they are even charging you some money for that, I think it's worth it, right? And again, as I said, that if the amount that is doubtful, maybe the tax that you paid is too much, maybe you want to pay someone some extra bucks to get that comfort. Okay, there was no room for improvement. Whatever you filed or whatever you paid was the correct amount. Or what if that accountant tells you, hey, you did some mistake and you could have saved this much amount? Like I just told you about a scenario, like we ended up saving them $6,500. So that's a big amount, right? Now let's come to the, let's say there is some issue and you decide to refile your tax return. And I'm not saying at all that you cannot do it yourself. You can do it yourself as well if you have the right amount of knowledge and experience. Do it yourself, but don't don't end up paying a lot of taxes and just stay in that doubt that I paid a lot of tax and I could have saved it. If you're sure that you could have saved it, you go for refiling. Now let's talk about the process. So the process is basically I'm going to talk about the process that we follow, And this is the general process, right? So a client would come up to us, call us, or would come up to us that, hey, somebody did my tax return last year and I'm not satisfied, or I ended up paying a lot of tax, and my friend told me that I'm just making up a scenario. Hey, and my friend who got tax return done from you, and he had a similar tax situation, and he ended up paying a lot less than me. So I just want you to review my tax return and see if there is a room for refiling, if it is a good idea to refile the tax return. So that's where we start off from. So the client would come to us, we're gonna review their already filed tax return, T1 tax return, and the T2125 form, which we have discussed in detail in other videos, especially for Uber drivers and self-employed people. So that's where we're gonna review it, and then Uber tax summaries and this and that, all the information that we're gonna require, and then we're gonna see, okay, if there is a room for improvement, right? And then we start redoing the tax return, right? And as I said, that after compiling all the information and after we have to recreate the tax return, and once we do that, then we can compare both tax returns, the new one, which is after the amendments, and the old one, which has already been filed. And we see if there is what's the benefit factor that we are getting out of this activity. And then obviously this thing will have an impact on the HST return as well. So first we're going to finish the income tax return, the T1, and then we're going to start working on the HST side of it, the other return. And if there is a difference, as I said, there is a high probability that we are going to have to send an amendment for the HST as well. So normally we do is we can e-file the amendment after getting the sign-off from the client and all that. We send it to CRA, submit it to CRA, the amendment, we send it to submit with the CRA, and then we also send the revised HST return as well. And obviously it takes some time for CRA to process that information, and then they will get back to the client and send a notice of reassessment and all that. And if there is any need, they might ask for explanation on the information that we have provided. So that's the process. It's if you look at it as a process, it's pretty simple. But yes, there is some work that needs to be done. If you're an expert, you can do it yourself. But if you're an accountant, they're going to follow this process, right? The last thing is that when you're refiling, you've got to make sure that you have proper supporting for all the expenses that you're claiming, right? So sometimes what happens is that somebody would say, hey, I paid too much taxes, so I'm thinking maybe I reported the maintenance, repairs and maintenance for my car, I reported less amount. It was more than what I reported, right? So okay, I believe you, but now since you've already filed your tax return, if you want to make the change, you make sure that you have the receipts, proper receipts, supporting documents for the whole expense that you're gonna put in your as an adjustment, because there is a good probability that CRA might ask for the supporting document. So again, as a conclusion, I would say if you're unhappy with the amount of tax that you paid as an Uber driver after filing your tax, and you think that the amount is too much, it's not a bad idea to get it reviewed by a proper accountant, and maybe the accountant tells you that yes, there was some mistake that you did, and if they kind of rectify that, your tax, you might get the whatever tax you paid, you might get some tax out of that back. So that's what it is. And if you have any questions or any comments, please share those on in the comment section, and also subscribe to our channel. We are we are going to be providing you information on taxes and accounting and everything related to self-employed, especially, and this time I'm very much positive that I will be making videos on a regular basis. All right, enjoy yourself. Take care for now. Bye.